So I kind of moved it to this. I did realize that it wasn't on here. One of you guys emailed was like, oh, the page isn't live. I'm like, oh. So I put it up, and I went over this with the second class, but I want to allow you guys to get a good overview as well. And this project is going to be similar to the first couple, how the first I offered you guys like a theme, and based on that theme, you can come up with your interests and, you know, apply those interests to conceptual idea. Now I'm trying, now that you've had a couple of times experiencing that, right? The first time was more exploratory and abstract. The second time was more critical. This time it can be a combination or either or. The point is I'm not dictating any kind of requirements as far as a theme goes, right? You could do whatever you want. So this ends up being a little bit of a struggle for some people, which is why I wouldn't do it at the beginning of the semester, right? You've had a couple different trials of doing this. So it's kind of getting you to that point of like, you know, being out in the real world, how do you come up with something? So that being said, hopefully all of those video clips that you guys watched independently gave you some different thoughts, and the vocab sheet as well has a bunch of different terms on there that should potentially make you think in a critical way towards a structure, right? So there are different ways to compile audio, and you really just can pick one and then go along with that. So we've went over kind of like this music concrete, which is abstract and exploratory. Obviously, you guys could do some kind of composed musical piece if you're into music, right? For some of you, that'd be like, there's no way I can do that. Others, if you've studied music and you know how to structure, you know, notes, I mean, you could use this project to do that. Another approach I think I have on the project proposal page is coming up with a systematical list. And a systematical list would allow really abstract, like weird orders of audio. And what ends up being interesting about that is you create the list and the system evolves and presents itself, right? You don't really have a total overarching ability to like control what the system's going to do, right? So you could say every 2 seconds you play this noise. What's the noise? You create the list and define how that's going to unfold. So there's a variety of ways to come up with this. You can just do. A lot of people like to approach it in the ways of either like a background track with some sound effects. That could be an interesting approach, pretty easy to kind of maintain because it's easily understandable. Or you could do just sound effects, sound clips. The whole point here though is that similar to Photoshop and Illustrator, right? You're going to be taking content, some of your own recorded audio, some things from the web, and bring it in to utilize, but then everything should be altered to some degree, right? We shouldn't be using a plain background in our Photoshop file, just like we shouldn't be bringing in like some song and putting that in, right? So to that regard, lost my train of thought on the one thing I was talking about there. Yeah, on the one hand, you can, this project is graded for its own grade. It is a little bit weighted less than the first two projects. It's to kind of allow you that space to play around, check things out, learn the technical pieces of audio. And then you'll be turning that in, it'll be graded, and the final project, we should be able to be utilizing audio for that. And because you will already have the ability at creating your own pieces of audio or manipulating or whatever, you know, that will allow you to also tweak or create any specific pieces of audio for that interaction as well. So, you know, what you learn in this audio project will also matriculate over and be counted for some points in the final project as well. So I don't want to confuse anybody. I'm trying to present this as an alternative perspective. So everything, does anybody, I'm going to go on to something else. Does anybody have questions on what I've spoken about so far?
I have two quick questions.
Yeah.
The first one is on the requirements page. It says at least 3 separate sound files must be created, and each of these sound files must contain at least 2 different sources. So does that just mean for the, hold on, let me turn my camera on because I just want to be a talking name. Does that mean for the final submission,
Right
we should, yeah, right there. Does that mean so that we have 3 separate like mini projects, I guess, for the final submission that
That's
are
a
like
good
different,
question.
similar? I'm just a little lost on that part.
Yeah, it's a good question, and this is basically the question everybody has from the get-go. I think that it's fair to be confused with this because I want to maybe make more sense of why it's confusing because everybody falls into this boat. Thinking of audio like visually is a new experience, right? We don't visualize audio all the time. So what I'm requiring for this is in terms of just like the same thing I was asking you guys for Photoshop, export a PDF, Illustrator, export an EPS, kind of getting those experiences of building, exporting content. You could do whatever for your project, one full length track, 3 minutes long, whatever. And then from that, export 3 different pieces. It could be like the beginning, middle, and end of that track with different sound effects.
Okay.
However you want. So that could all be contained within one project, and then you turn on and off layers to export whatever you want or select a section.
So it doesn't need to be like part 1, part 2, part 3. It can be like an entire through line, but like just this or just that, and then like just the background with some alterations on it. Okay.
Yeah.
That's kind of what I was.
Yeah, basically whatever you guys propose to me and question if that's going to be okay. Basically, I'm going to say yes. It's completely open. The point here is that I'm requiring you to have these 3 separate just to get that experience of making sure you understand how to isolate the content correctly to obtain different correct exports.
Okay.
Yeah, and I don't know. I hope that makes sense to everybody that might have been confused about that, but
yeah, that solidified it for me. So I appreciate that.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other thing was about the final project. So do you mean we're going to use like these actual files for it, or that it can
Absolutely.
kind of just inform another creation process for the final?
You're reading my mind, man. That first question was basically what I was going to talk about into transitioning to
Mhm.
talking about the final fourth project. Um, so, like I said, this project's going to be graded in its own right, no matter what you do. However, if you have an idea of what you are going to be wanting to do for the final project, um, and I understand I haven't given it to you guys yet. Everything that's built out right now is for processing, so it's going to be slightly tweaked around based on the new platform. But in reality, um, it's going to be an interactive experience where we have the screen. You could put anything on the screen you want. It could be abstract. It could be like a storybook. It could be a game. Basically, you have your mouse and your keyboard, and you could basically design any sort of experience you want. And through those interactions that a user might make, there's going to be the opportunity to pair audio, right? And by pairing audio to an interaction, you make that interaction more meaningful. And so if you guys have an idea of what you would want to be doing for that coding project, that interaction, um, you could design your audio to be, utilized for that project. That's essentially what I'm talking about for
Mm.
that. However, I'm not going to regrade you for the content of the audio in the final project. So you could do this audio project, completely just shove it under the rug. And for the final coding, you could use any random clips. It doesn't have to be modified. Um, all I will care about in the final project there is how meaningful those sounds are interacting. So I know it's kind of like weird to think about a second project while we're still figuring out the first, but um, it can be beneficial. Like a couple people each semester do have that
Mhm.
um, instantaneous, like, oh, you know what? I want to do this project, right? And that's cool. If you guys have that idea already, that's great. If not, I wouldn't sweat it. I wouldn't sit there racking your brain about a second project right now. I would just be focusing on, what could be interesting for audio. So in the past, I will also say that in the past, I've always required um, at least one stereo file. And the problem with that is that it ended up being very minuscule and very, like, nobody gave any effort whatsoever to building that out. And because I want to make us focus more on that element of stereo, I think that it's important to make sure that all of your tracks are utilizing stereo to some degree. Um, and how can I phrase this? If I have one microphone, right, like I have right here, and I create an audio clip, and I use that audio clip in Audacity, and I have that is left channel and right channel, and I export it, is that a stereo file?
No.
Correct. Technically, you have it on both left and right tracks, which is, you know, two layers, which that is the definition of a stereo track. However, I'm not going to give you that benefit of the doubt because the whole point of a stereo track is to have some kind of difference in those two tracks so that you have a spatial experience, right? And I'm not saying you need to go wild and crazy. It needs to be, you know, like a symphony on steroids. But I do want you guys to be kind of going through and making sure that you utilize the different things. Basically, all the things that we cover in this tutorial, you should be kind of incorporating, because there's not a lot of tool use. There is a lot of room for exploration with effects, right? And those you guys will have to experience on your own, previewing those effects. We're going to be going over those kinds of things today. So after today, you know, pairing with what you've already went through in those videos, after today, you should have a decent idea toward what your project is going to be. If you don't, before class ends, you know, ask me some questions maybe, because you will have to come up with that concept over, you know, over the next few days. Anything else worth mentioning here? This is a pretty good, I keep getting hair in my smoothie. Am I going bald? I'm not going bald, JK. I just showered though. This is the one thing that I just try to implement to make it easier for me to understand what you did in your audio projects, and for all of you to get as many points as you can. And it's strictly by just following directions and showing that you can be organized. So I can only give this disclaimer once because it is a small component, but and this is why I have these requirements listed for you, so there's no surprises. And we're just starting the project, right? Kind of officially. So from this point on, you should be following these directions so that you can abide by the requirements. And as I said, I'm doing it so I can understand how you achieved what you achieved. It's not just to make you jump through hoops or anything. Although most of school is about just jumping through hoops, right? I mean, that's life. All of your audio content must be kept track of using a text file. So if you guys are using some personally recorded audio clips, right? You go out and you record a door creaking, or a dog barking, or, you know, your best friend farting or something. You need to, in a text file, you know, more easily just to have like the name of the file, like farting clip or farting, and then put recorded by myself. And then I know you recorded it by yourself, right? Rather than you found it online. If you guys got content online, you should be putting where you got that content. So if you're using all the same source to get everything, we will cover a couple of sources that are good to use. Those, you just put like the web URL. All content was obtained from this site. If you got content from YouTube, you know, put YouTube. Realistically, the best practice is to put individual links for each bit of audio, so that you can go back to it. I know that can be troublesome. Sometimes you go out and you grab something, you forget where you got it. Later on, you're like, oh shoot, I didn't keep that link. You know, a lot of times you have browsing history, but you know, once you go out and actually are doing stuff, it's really beneficial to have the original content, or where you found it. And this whole practice of like keeping track of where you get your content from is kind of thinking around like reusing other people's creations, right? There are privacy laws in place and things like that. However, because this is a classroom setting, you guys don't have to worry about it. Like officially, you know, you're not going to jail, but you should follow this to get, get that kind of general background, something, having that in the background of your head, thinking, oh, where am I getting this content? Am I allowed to use it? Where, saving where you got it, these different things. And on top of that, I want you guys to have a folder dedicated to original sound clips. So again, when you are recording your own content, at the beginning of your recording, you should always state what it is you're recording for your own reference. But any of your own recordings or anything you got off the web, you should put the full original clip in this folder. So in reality, you should have a folder, really, I can't type. Project 3, I'd put your first last name just so that later when you submit it, you don't have to worry about it. Original audio files, and also a text file. And then you could have your Audacity files all here, right? You have an original folder. Taking the time to show you this, because a lot of people forget or don't keep it or something, makes it really hard for me to know how you came to what you came to. And I mean, full disclosure, if I don't know how you got to something, how do I know you made it? Right? I mean, take that to court and hold yourself up accountable, right? So that's why I also want you guys to have it, so I can go and listen to your source and experience then what you guys did to achieve your creation, right? I'm hoping all this is making sense. I mean, this is the nitty gritty, but it's important process. So any questions? Okay. I'm a little surprised. I'm gonna grab a layer here, I think. This is not too warm.
Wait, I have one question.
Shoot.
And it's only Audacity, right? Like we can't use like Premiere.
Well, Premiere is a video editing program, so I wouldn't want you to be using that.
Well, oh no, because I was just saying the class I was in last year, we also did like a sound project and we just put in Premiere. That I was just asking. That's my bad.
No, you're fine. I would allow you guys to also use Audition, which is Adobe's platform for audio, if you wanted to. The one thing to note is that, as of right now, you have the Adobe suite. You pay for it, or you have access, but you do have to pay for it down the road. So this program is free. Anybody else that you work with potentially could also have access, right? So it's kind of learning like alternative programs where you're not being, your lifeblood's not being sucked out. So it is a very basic program. So even if you are pretty good at knowing other audio programs, it's super easy to get into this and use it, and then you have that understanding for the future. That's what I would recommend. But if you do want to use Audition, if you're adamant about that, I would just shoot me an email, give me that heads up, because as of right now, I think I mentioned that to both classes. Maybe I didn't. I don't know of anybody that is going to. So if I do have somebody that will want that, or a few people, I want to also like prepare myself by kind of going through it again. I've never really used it to make work. I've only ever, checked it out on a video a couple times. So as long as I can like prepare myself, like, oh, where are tools? How do I view and organize and see what you did, right? That's the most important thing. Then everything will be kosher. Okay, so I know we kind of stumbled a little bit into the exercise. I want us to kind of start back in, but also make sure that if anybody had any initial questions, what we covered, we can do that as well. So I think this is all. I think I'll just leave it recording. I'll have to edit this later. Both classes are a little bit in a different spot. So we kind of talked about making sure your webcam's selected in system preferences, also in Audacity itself, which, I in the second class, I tried to record and it didn't capture anything. And it should just be the fact that the proper microphone is not selected. Playback recording. So I have, multiple different inputs. So I would want to make sure I have the right one. So beyond that, then we kind of talked about all the basic tool system. And we really didn't dive into using them that much. So I will kind of like recap them as we go along. Essentially, your selection tool is doing exactly what you would assume it would do. You can select different chunks of content, either to copy it, to take it out in another layer, to then after you might have taken it out, you could then use the move tool, move that chunk around. I think every semester I always forget this one too because I never use it. So maybe we'll take a peek at that. And then, so I guess we could all get this open. And can you guys remind me, is this better for you for you single screeners, if I keep it like kind of like towards half the screen, or anybody have any insight on that? Or should I do full screen, or any preferences?
Full screen is better because it still just shows up as half our screen if we're trying to open multiple things at the same time.
Are you doing dual screen or?
No, I'm saying like if I'm using a single screen, your Zoom screen still just shows up as the Audacity channel taking up half of the Zoom screen.
Right, but then what I'm thinking in my mind is that then you could take your Zoom window and move it across so you have access to the two. I guess I didn't preface that, but yeah, if nobody else has that preference, I could just keep it wide. Let's see here. I did not do this. Okay, so yeah, once we have this open, all we're going to be doing is importing some audio. And if you forgot or you weren't here, towards the top here, there should be this folder of audio. So if you don't have any audio you want to use on your computer, you could just grab this folder, unzip it, and then we can place some of that content. Import audio. It should be on my downloads here. Let's see. And I think the one caveat I think I mentioned to you guys, yeah, is that you probably only be able to hear my audio through my microphone, but it should be good enough. So let's see, police whistle. Holy crap, that's loud. Okay. So once we bring in some audio here, it may or may not fit within your window. I think by default, it should just automatically fit itself. And by fitting itself, I mean like at the top here, we have our timeline in seconds, right? And it should default to filling the timeline by default. So if I scroll over, there should be nothing. However, if it's not, you can always zoom in or out, right? Depending on how you want your view to be. And so, let's see, thinking this through, I think the first thing I want everybody to comprehend is the stereo element, right? And we're going to keep refocusing back to that, but this is a pretty good introductory kind of place to start, I think. And I'm probably going a little off track from what the guide specifies, but so if any of you have some kind of audio clip open, what I'm going to do here is, because this kind of starts abruptly and ends abruptly almost, I'm going to ultimately like take one of these and put it on a new layer, and then, you know, like change the effects on that and play around with that. But as of right now, both of these two channels are the same and they're attached, right? I can't select one without the other. And reason being is, if we look on the left, all the information's combined because it is just that one file. That file was a stereo file by default. So both tracks will be in that file. So, and again, I'm under the expectation that all of you have headphones on. You won't be able to perceive my stereo effects because I only have one microphone. And even if I had two, I don't think that Zoom supports stereo microphones. I don't know, maybe it does. But anyway, I'm gonna walk you through this. You walk through the same way, and then we should achieve the same thing. So we have our basic information here. You can always collapse your files if you want, or what I usually prefer to do is just shift them just to have more view for whatever else I'm working with, right? And that's just simply just pointing at the median there. But all of your really basic fundamental components of the track itself is going to be up through that drop-down arrow, which is the menu. And if we click that, first thing you should always do if you have content that you're going to be keeping, right, is giving it some kind of name. And right there, you could already read, it says police whistle, so that's fine. But you know, if it said something like some weird, you know, thing first, like a lot of web files will, obviously you just at a glance, you don't know what the heck that is. So it's always going to be way better to understand what files you're looking at when they're all, you know, when you have a half dozen of them here or more. So next things we're looking down through here, these are just the different views you can set this to. And by default, we're just going to be sticking to the main waveform here, because that's really what all of our content was specifying, is showing you the actual waves, right? So moving on, then we have a couple different things down here. This is for your actual specifications of the file itself. You don't really have to worry about changing these per se, because when you do export audio, right, into a sound file, you can set the specifications. Now, this is something that might seem super obvious to people, like, why do I have to mention it? But those of you who are new to audio, I do want to restate this important fact here real quick. And this Audacity file is a program file. We're working in a program. Yes, we're using audio in that program, but exporting audio is, a standalone audio piece where we can't edit it anymore unless we brought it into another program again, right? So an Audacity file is separate from the audio file, just like a JPEG is separate from a PSD, right? Hoping people remember that. I have a lot of students each semester that submit just like a folder of their edited audio exports, and no original audio folder, no other nothing. So it's, then I have to reach out and try to ask them for content. So trying to avoid that, right? A lot of back and forth. I guess if this is the first time you're opening this, let's go ahead and just make sure we're saving this. We're going to save it as, and this gives you that disclaimer the first time you're looking at this. And if you're new to audio and you're still not fully understanding this, I would not check this. I would let this pop up each time, so until you like grasp what this is talking about. Basically, if you want that audio file, you do an export, not a save. So the only option for file type we have is this Audacity file format. And on, wherever you're going to be saving your exercise, I don't have one, so let's make one. Exercise 3. I'm going to save this. Right, I'm going to name it. Actually, you guys aren't even submitting these, so it doesn't matter. But okay, so I'm naming it. I saved it there. And this is one thing that you guys could walk through yourself, or just follow me on screen. But I'm going to review this again really quick. I'm going to keep doing this. I'm going to keep beating it into you guys. So the exercise 3 folder that I just made on my desktop, if I open this up, you'll see that, lo and behold, there's the file that I'm working with, right? It's 2 different pieces. Pretty sure we covered this, but I'll probably even cover it again after this. We have our Audacity file and its supporting data folder. In theory, you should not be changing the names of these after making them. If you want to change the name, you need to go to a file save as and then make a new name, right? Otherwise, you're going to be losing content here. Does anybody have questions on this? These 2 files always stay together as well. You don't just drag one without the other. It's a little convoluted, but processing itself also works in the same way. So I'm not sure how P5 will work for the web editor, but getting into these more technical programs, we do have a little bit more complex files hierarchy or requirements. Okay, so back into here. The first thing I want us to do is separate this from a stereo, quote unquote stereo track, right? It's got 2 tracks. Into 2 mono tracks so that we can manipulate them independently. So the first thing we're going to do is click this drop down arrow for the menu. And we want this option, split stereo track to mono. And we should now see that they each have their own independent information, right? So at this point, you can mute one of them, right? It's grayed out. So you would only hear this one. And because this one, even though it's a mono track, you're setting it to be played in both left and right ears. So maybe I should put headphones on too. No, I don't have, oh, that's what I need to bring from back home. I have a studio headphones, longer cable. So, oh, well, and then you guys can't hear it though. Always something. But at least I did confirm myself that even though this is now a mono track, with this in the center, it is setting it to equal left and right channels. So if we wanted one to be on, say, the left side, and we want the other one to be on the right side, we can set that, and we can unmute this. But then when we play this back, it's still going to be identical on both ears because of the fact that they're the identical same file, right? It's the exact same thing. So I think what I want us to do is kind of isolate this so we're not dealing with so much. If you guys have a shorter clip, that's great. I really want to just deal with this introduction chunk here. So you guys can do any kind of modification you want here, but I'm going to go ahead and delete this intro, and just so it's these 2 separate pieces now. And I'm also going to remove this redundant kind of file piece from the top layer. And so now if I played that back, I'm going to be able to hear each piece on each headphone. And obviously we're only going to hear this one for a very short period of time, but you know, there's ways to change what this is doing. Questions, anybody? Yeah, during these days, if you guys get confused or stumbled or whatever, just be shouting out. You know, it's classroom. If I were in the classroom, like probably every 5 minutes, I go to each, you know, somebody's workstation and help out. So it should be no difference here. Okay, so moving on here.
Actually, if I want to, because I'm just trying to messing around right here. If I want to make like an identical selection once I've split these into 2 separate tracks, is there like a shortcut to do that? Because I'm trying to shift click them and it's not gonna let me. Like say I wanted to trim the head of it, and I wanted it to be the same on both. Is there a way to do that?
Oh, so make a selection across 2 different layers.
Yeah, now that I've split the one file into 2.
I mean, I'm just dragging down.
Oh, can you? Let me see. Ah, okay. Simple solutions.
Yeah, user interface design. The whole career, dudes. It's a whole career. UX design. You could go to school for that. It's a thing. Yeah. So I think the point now would be also acknowledging that let's introduce a couple other pieces, and then I'll let you guys start to explore effects. So now that you know how to alternate audio from left to right, you know how to split this so that it's an independent track. The next piece here would be this time shifter tool. So because we have independent pieces of audio now, like this entire piece is one piece, from here to here is one piece, you could grab these chunks just like an object in Illustrator, right? Or a photo in Photoshop. You can grab that and move that around wherever you want. So, you know, if you wanted a little bit of space as you start the file to be silent for some reason, you can move it out. Generally, you don't need that. Another thing to acknowledge here is that you could use your selection tool and make a selection. So say this whole tiny little piece here, but it could be anything. You could literally just edit, copy, right? Command C, and wherever you want, you just click and Command V, edit, paste. And same thing, we could use that time shifter tool and move it to wherever we want. You will note that you can't merge things together, right? You can't push things closer than they are. So like Illustrator, you can overlap objects. Here, these clips cannot be overlapped on that layer. So if for some reason you want this clip to be overlapping the original, right? Say you want it to be halfway through, you start it over for some reason, which would be weird because it's the same sound, but totally can do that. The way to go about that, I think there's 2 ways. Let me double check. Yeah, so you could take a selection, you could copy it, and instead of like clicking where you want to put, where you want to place it, right? When I click on one layer, you can see kind of like a light border for that layer, highlight. If you change layers, you can see a light border highlight, right? It's acknowledging which layer you're referring to. Well, if you don't want it to be in either layer, you could just click off those layers and then Command V, and it'll paste it on a new layer. So that's one way. And this is just very intuitively like selecting, copying, pasting, right? Where are you pasting it? You're clicking where. It'd be kind of nice if you could do that in Illustrator, right? Like you just point to where you're pasting. That'd be kind of nice. Okay, and then you know, copy that. So you can already start to see how complex and strange this thing could start to be getting. Oh, let's play it from here maybe. Woo! Sneezing today. So it's basically like the same thing, right? Over and over. So let's go ahead and just remove a couple of these layers. And instead of having identical of the same thing, let's bring in a second piece of audio. So import audio. We'll do, I think I have a fart noise. Yeah, fart noise. Okay. Same thing with this. I would recommend, just so we have less that we're working with, we can go and split this to mono and then just delete one of them. And, you know, maybe keeping up with that trend, we have one on each ear just for now, just so you guys can get a sense of separating the two. And so also, I don't know if you all have selected the same whistle noise as me, but when I play this back, if you watch up here, the volume metering, see, we're really close to peaking. We actually don't peak, so whoever balanced this actually did a pretty decent job, right? It is not peaking. However, probably a little bit higher than you really need. It is a really loud file. So if you had some kind of component that is peaking or too loud, we're going to get into like how you can adjust that as well. Kind of covering some of the basic things. So I think this is a pretty good intro so far. I want you guys to be able to now explore what you can do with just copying, pasting, you know, making layers, moving content around, but then also, oops, kind of cut that. That's about the lowest spot you can get. I also want you to play with effects. So right now, this whistle sound, if I solo it again, we've all heard it a few times, I think, right? Well, so what does that sound? It's almost like a tea kettle too. What could that sound like differently, right? If we adjusted it somehow. So I believe you have to have the section you want selected, but it could just be the layer. Let's just try the layer. And then all we're doing, just like kind of like Photoshop, we're just going to effect and then literally just taking whatever effect we want. And there's a lot of them, right? And because I'm not there and you guys are hearing this through my microphone, it's a better learning experience for you guys to just try these yourself and see what happens. And obviously you don't need to go through every single one of them, but you're going to go through and find things that are interesting. Might not be exactly what you want for right now, but I wouldn't take any of these experiments that you're going to be doing here for this next few minutes. I wouldn't be taking them as a waste of time, because you should be kind of like documenting some of the stuff in your mind, thinking like, oh, well, you know what? I need to do this new thing to this file. Oh yeah, I used phaser before and that seemed to work good, right? So kind of get a sense of what's available. So yeah, I am going to use phaser. Let's see. And let's see if I can. Edit phaser. Stages. I'm not entirely sure if this is, if I need to select it, I can't remember. Yeah, it's definitely affecting here. Stages. So you could do some kind of effect. What is this saying? Oh yeah, you do have to select. Okay. That was my initial thought, and I'm like, wait, do you need to? Phaser. Feedback. Oh yeah, give me that feedback. Yeah, now we're talking. Perfect. Completely different audio file now, right? And now, as you can see, it's like super peaking. See that? So when we play this back, we're like losing a lot of that. So there are circumstances where this could be a fun effect to use, but you always want to be sure that you're never really losing. So here I put the output gain down. I probably have to do it again. Yeah, and that's better. There's still a couple peaking spots, but so it could be a matter of like adjusting the levels first and then doing phaser or something like that. So I want you guys to go through and check out these different tools, you know, make different selections, play around with kind of making it interesting, like mini composition. And I'd say try to do something like 5-10 seconds long, right? Not something that's so short that it's just a sound effect, but maybe like this little you know, like a ringtone. You know, you set an alarm tone and it's got like a little jingle. See if you guys can come up with like a little jingle. There are a couple other pieces too that were up here. I thought it was under generate, but I don't know if it's necessarily super critical to play around with. Boundaries. So why don't you just do that for the time being? Play around with all these different effects, kind of stage something out. I'll stop talking so that you guys can actually do that. And then let's give you guys like maybe 20 minutes, something like that. I think that should be enough time. And then, yeah, we'll keep like a majority of the questions to the end, if you guys would. Just keep, you know, jot something down. Everybody should have something to write with every day that we're here. Jot some questions down, and then when we reconvene, I think then we'll talk about it. This way, we're not talking over each other while we're working. All right, dudes. The time has come. Hopefully you all are kind of diving in and having some fun with this. Usually at this point, you kind of like already decided on something that you're trying to achieve. If you're actually, you know, if you're actually going through and playing around with things like you should have been. Anybody come up with any questions? Generally, when we meet in the classroom, I go around and have you guys kind of preview for the class like what you've come up with. But it's a little weird to do that here through microphones too. I want to show you guys a few more things. It's not too much more, but these definitely will be helpful. And also we can just double check here if there was anything else. So different ways we can change, reverse it, change the speed and pitch, amplify. All of these things can be helpful for building stuff out. So if you wanted a specific chunk, well, this is a good example. These are kind of peaking a little bit still. So if we wanted to shrink that little section down, we could just go to Effect and to Amplify, and we just shrink down, right? We reduce the amplification. So we can reduce it by a decent chunk, but do we really need to do that far? No. So let's go back, and I don't know if this is automatically defaulting, -4.6. Oh yeah, it did. So does this, oh, okay. So it looks like it might be suggestive now of what will work without clipping, or to bring it down below clipping. Yeah. So if you have a high point, you can just select that point. And now as you see, I'm playing it back and it's not getting into the red. So it's technically like the highest it can get. So when you guys are doing your project, I know this is a very kind of a minuscule component here, but this is something that you should be aware of and actively practicing.
I actually have a question. Could you show how to physically drag the clip left or right?
Yeah, you just use this tool, the time shift.
Because when I click on that, it gives me the stop icon and it won't let me drag my clip for some reason.
You'll have to screen share.
Okay, 1 second.
Stop icon. Sounds to me like it can't find the file or something.
Yeah, it says it's disabled for screen sharing right now.
Sorry, this is oh, I turned that on earlier for my office hour. I forgot. Okay, you're good. Okay. I thought I already had that activated.
You're fine. Okay, so when I click on this, it gives me this stop icon for some reason. And I have no idea why.
Can you take your selection tool and click on that?
Yeah, is that this?
Yeah. Now will that allow you to move it? Weird.
I think it might be because your track is paused instead of stopped. Like your timeline is still over there near like the 7-second mark.
Okay.
Maybe that could be it.
Oh,
Weird.
okay. Perfect. Thank you.
I
Because
haven't
I ran into the
used that.
exact same problem.
Okay. Yeah.
Awesome. Never mind then.
Yeah, that's pretty good to know. That's weird, actually, because here, if I go to play this, oh, this is really short right now, but so if I pause mine in the middle, oh yeah, it does, I guess, yeah.
Yeah, I was very confused by that because I was like, I literally cannot move anything.
Oh, you know why? Because I never used that pause button. You literally must have hit P then, right? Or pause.
Yeah, I was afraid to press the stop button, so I kept hitting pause.
So I might not have re-mentioned this time. I'm pretty sure I did on Monday. I just use the space bar to play and to pause. So when you're doing that, you never run into that problem.
Yeah, I'm gonna do that from now on because I've been like manually selecting play and it's kind of time consuming.
Yeah, it's definitely annoying. Yeah. Yeah, and even when you hover there, it reminds you, oh, space bar, or to loop it, shift space. Well, now I know that that's a conundrum. What else was I saying? Oh, okay. So similar to how we were like, copying something and then going somewhere else and pasting it, that can work, but then it's technically like, not super accurate as far as like getting exactly where it might have been previously, or there might be other circumstances where, say you want to take it out of this track, but because for example, if I select this and I cut it, Command X, it deletes that part and it puts it in my clipboard, right? So I can now paste it somewhere, but it actually shrunk that track, but maybe I didn't want that track to shrink. So I'm gonna undo it. And this is where you have the ability at, specifying that process. So it's gonna be under Edit and Clip Boundaries. So you have a few different selections here. And usually it's just gonna be either split or split new. That'll literally make a beginning and end, component, like basically a new object to that track. So if we split that, it'll have those sides left and right. If you do want it to be deleted, my way about it would be going to split new, right? And then it doesn't move that whole track over. And then you could just delete the new chunk if you wanted to not even have it. So you can go through like, and there should be that option Command I. So you can kind of start to get into some of these. It's not like, you'd remember all of these shortcuts in the future, but like if you're going through some kind of process like this right now where it'd be a lot faster, knowing a couple of shortcuts probably be useful. I'm gonna turn up my fart here and turn down my phaser. Yeah. Oh, this is going into the red because I did the gain. That's interesting. If you adjust the gain in the track, it goes up in volume. But what I never noticed is it doesn't give you the visual indicator. You're not actually affecting the layer. You're just affecting the output of that gain, the volume on the output end. So you have to be careful of not going too high to where you get in the red, like I just did there, right? Okay, so clip boundary. Oh, and then this last piece that I'll show you is pretty helpful. I'm going to bring in a new layer of audio. Some party crowd here. So I want you guys to bring in some kind of stereo track. And then let's go ahead and, this is actually going to be a good one if you don't have your own audio to use the party crowd. I think that'll be a pretty good example. We're going to take that and we're going to split it to mono. I can't remember what split stereo track does. It looks like it's doing the same exact thing. So we have these two independent tracks here. And if you're using this one or whatever, I think that to really see this effect, we probably only need like maybe 10 seconds. I'd say that's probably about like the limit I would go with for this example. So let's go ahead and select everything beyond 10 and delete it. And for right now, I also just muted these other layers, right? So we're just working with this one. What did I do here? I feel like I've done this before, and I don't remember how I got to it. You see how this is like on the 0 line and coming up now? It's going to 2. I don't know what I did. I think I held some kind of key. Well, now I'm stuck. Weird. I don't know. I think I just hit a hotkey and messed it up. Can I undo it? Maybe. Okay, there we go. All right. So this next process is pretty useful to be able to create space, right? The sonic space. And you really can't do it with mono, right? There's no way to really go about that. We have these two ears. We need to be able to utilize them independently. And this process is known as just a crossfade. And we just use this tool up here, this envelop tool. This is a way to do it manually. There's probably a way to do it just with the software. But this way is pretty nice because it actually gives you the physical ability to edit this yourself. So sometimes it is helpful to have this a little larger to do this process, these two layers here. So all we're going to do is click on that envelop tool, and then it kind of highlights all these different layers. It's kind of asking you or showing you, I guess, where you can manipulate. And it's anywhere on these little white lines that pop up. And because we're wanting to apply it to these two particular layers, we want to be using these lines. So on one of these layers, we're going to start at no volume and ramp up to full volume. So right now, this is full volume. The bar is all the way at the top. And so we want to click on the left-hand side. We want to drag this all the way down and into the left, right? Because you can kind of drag the vector point anywhere. We want to just be on the left-hand side at the bottom. And then we click anywhere else and we pull up and we go all the way to the right side, right? And so you can obviously see right off the bat that the points are a little goofy. So what I usually do from this point on is put another one right in the middle to kind of be that bridging point, kind of decide where the middle between 0 would be and between 1. So around 50. And then you just fill in the gaps from there. And all we're trying to aim for here is like somewhat more of an accurate slope, right? And after you do it once or twice, it generally is pretty simple going forward. It doesn't have to be super perfect. We're just kind of getting an idea here. And then we're going to do the opposite for the bottom. So we want the left side all the way up. We want one in the middle. And then we want on the right. And just filling in the gaps. Oh, didn't know I had that set. Okay. And so once you have this done, I want you guys to play it back and let me know what happens. Assuming these other layers are muted, right? We're just listening to these 2 layers from start to finish. How does the effect sound? Does it sound like a crossfade? Hello, anybody?
I mean, I'm not using my my headphones. I'm using my computer speaker. I can still tell that it's a crossfade, but it would definitely be, the stereo would definitely be more apparent if I were using headphones.
Okay, anybody else? So I'm kind of trying to walk you guys into a conundrum here and getting somebody to...
Sorry about that. I didn't realize my microphone wasn't working.
Oh.
Yeah, that last bit, I didn't hear it.
The last what?
From my end.
The last bit that I was saying?
What you trying to show us about the crossfade? I heard nothing.
Oh, so realistically, all I'm trying to get you guys to do is get this to ramp up and then one to ramp down, and then play this back and let me know, does it sound like a successful crossfade from one side to another? I guess this can be an answer or question for everyone then, maybe. I only had one person answer.
I'm assuming you played it back a second time.
I'm not playing it back at all. I'm just waiting for you guys, somebody to respond and tell me if they've got it to be successful or not. Because you're not going to be able to hear a crossfade from a single microphone on my end. All right, well, somebody say something?
No, I said I got mine to work.
You said what? One more time?
I got mine to work.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, most people, if they are doing this the first time and they're, most of the time they're not going to get it to work right off the bat. And reason being is that you still have to modify the pan, that what channel, which one's happening in. So if you didn't have it working, you just turn those on, and then that should give you an accurate pan from left to right. However, I just want to note that this is an even pan right now. It doesn't need to be an even pan, right? It could kind of be, could be like a funky looking pattern, right? And what does that do for your particular piece? And this is like such an easy tool to use that it's another example of like what you should be, kind of like Pathfinder, like, right? Like, why not integrate it for a component? So that's a majority of really what we needed to cover. As you can tell, it was really only like 1, 2, 3 tools and the ability to add effects and understanding how to copy paste and split stereo, right? That's pretty much it. So beyond that, you guys will be coming up with a concept and doing the same process again of developing that concept, piecing together different content to abide by that concept, right? Are we dealing with a spooky forest with goblins, or what's the concept, right? And then gathering content to build that out. So definitely want to make sure you come to class on Monday with substantial amount of content to start manipulating. We will only have a couple days next week to work on this. And then it'll be due like the following week. Still didn't do the schedule, but we're like over 2 weeks out on the due date. So yeah, if you guys have any questions, you can stick around. Otherwise, I'll see you guys on Monday.